Now, we go to Corpus Christi, and the first thing we fly down there is called a WWII vibrator. It's a low-wing monoplane made by WWII. Had about, maybe 250 horsepower, low wing, with non-retractable gear. And then after you finish flying these planes, they ask you if you wanted to go on to be a fighter pilot or a bomber pilot, multi-engine, or seaplane type of thing. Well, then you say, okay, I'd like to be a fighter pilot. Okay, and if you got what you wanted, well, that's what you got. So they went to another base. We started flying the SNJ. These were the first planes we had that had a gun in them. They had a little 30 caliber gun just to the right center of the front windshield, set out on the nose of the airplane. The shot through the propeller. It was timed to the propeller, and had a little bomb compartment underneath the wing. Now, a bomb compartment was just like a box, and it opened up, and you could drop small miniature bombs out of it, like about the size of a shotgun shell with smoke when they hit the ground. And this is where we learned to do like combat flying.
By this time, people could fly pretty well.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, the airplanes were almost second nature. Right.
And this was more of a training to get you used to being in a combat situation.
Yeah, and you got to be able to, you got to know how to shoot. You got to know the other guy's way, too. So. But we finished our course then down there in Texas. And that's when we got our commission. But the funny thing that happened down there, not funny thing, is that my father died about a month before I would have graduated. He died in February. And then I came home, and we even tried to get out of the Navy. I didn't want to, but my mother wanted me to try to get out to run the ice business, And she wrote letters to different commanding officers and everything, trying to get me out as was needed, see. And I couldn't quite see it that way myself, because I did want to get my commission. I said close to it. So I stayed in, but I was home for, I'd say, maybe 8 weeks, and come back in, finish my training, about the last month or so, and got my commission. And then I came home again, this time for, another 6 weeks, before we went to Daytona Beach, where we started flying F-6F Hellcats. A solo plane. Only one person can fly that plane. You can't have an instructor with you. And down there we did what we called field carrier landings to practice. They had a field, several fields located out in the swamps or something, just to cut out of the woods with a landing strip on. And we would have to approach this like you're approaching an aircraft carrier. Had a flagman on the field, that would signal you with these pilots like they do on an aircraft carrier. But then there's other training too. We had machine guns, we had bombing, and we had a lot of formation flying.
Okay, so the time is about December of 44 when you finally got out to California.
Yeah, December 44. I was sent out to Oxnard, California, which is another little training base out there north of Los Angeles. But we were stationed out at Thermal, which was where Patton trained his tank crew out in the desert there. And the dust was about ankle deep out there. It wasn't dirt, it was dust. And this is where we learned how to shoot rockets. Our planes carried 6 rockets, 3 shoot off in 2, 3 under each wing, a 5-inch rocket. They were about 4 feet long, 5 inches in diameter. They'd go through a destroyer, clear through a destroyer with armor piercers. Is that right? And then they called us to go out to Pacific. We got aboard the Shangri-La, brand new carrier. Loaded up, I said, with 5,000 Marines on board who slept on the hangar deck with all the new airplanes. We got off at Pearl Harbor Right, right on Shangri-La. And we were stationed at Pearl Harbor, then for more training. Air Group 98. We were in Pearl Harbor for, maybe a couple months. Then we go to Guam. And we stationed at Guam maybe for about a month. We finally ended up at Saipan. Then we were to fly over Tokyo, low, and more or less to impress the Japanese people that we, had some planes that were powerful or whatever. And when they told us to fly low, well, we flew low. We flew right up and down the streets over there.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. It was, something we're never allowed to do, but I guess I always kind of wish you could do it. About a little flying. Kind of a show-off type of thing,
Was this that same day, or was this...
No, this was like maybe a week later, maybe less than that, maybe 4 or 5 days after the war was over.
This was the same time you mentioned earlier, the thousands of planes.
Oh, this was later. The thousands of planes went over when they were signing the peace treaty. Well, I said about that time, maybe the day after. But it was a great show. And then after that, shortly after that, we were returned to Guam. The air group that we were with had just joined, was put on the Guam at a rest camp. They were supposed to be on this, like a rest camp area where they had all the drinks and beach and everything there just for the pilots, or like a rest camp. But we were there 2 days, and our commander heard about the independence was going back to the States, and he got in touch with a destroyer, and our whole air group got aboard this destroyer in about 2 to 3 days' time while we were back aboard Independence. Transferred features way out in the middle of the ocean out there, and came back to Seattle, and was finally discharged. I don't know what the dates were, but we were home before Thanksgiving, which we thought was quite soon.
So you got out and you came back to the ice plant.
Oh, yeah. I had a job waiting for me when I got back. And then the next year, we figured, well, we got to do something about this ice plant. It's not modern enough with today's business we were having. It wasn't a lot of business, but the plant was getting old and tired, and we thought by spending a lot of money on it, making the building larger, and combining our 2 plants into one, it'd be a little more economical operation. So we spent $93,000 converting that plant to a modern plant in 1946. And put in conveyors and enlarged the whole building, enlarged the tank, and a big crane that picks up 4 tons of ice at a time. And we put in cubing machines that made cubes out of the ice. And that was really the changing point. Business was bad, but then we went into what they call ice vending machines, where you put your money in a slot, and the ice comes out. We were the first in Cincinnati to put ice in paper bags. We were the first in Cincinnati area to put in vending machines. And time went on, we started building our own ice vending stations. We had as many as 13 of those at one time. And then I guess by about 1955, vending stations were getting pretty expensive to buy. We thought, well, by putting out a nice chest type of thing, we could put them out many, many locations for the price of one big one. And that's where we went.
When you got back from the war, who was involved in the business at that point? Your father had died.
My father had died, yes. My sister, and my 2 sisters, and my mother. And the crew at the ice plant, the old fellows that were there.
kept things going. And I had a younger brother, which at that time would probably be about maybe 14 or 15 years old. Tommy. In fact, he's 12 years younger, so he wouldn't have been quite, probably about 12 years old. And even he helped, to plant that time, during the war. Business was still good, clear up until, I guess 48 or 49, as far as home delivery. And then after that, it was just started downhill. Then we put our vending machines in, and that's sort of picked us back up. And then we went into the ice chest types. And that's been the biggest thing that ever happened to the ice business.